There's been a lot of local people up on the ground in Mount Bosabi, both missionaries who are based there and local villagers who've been helping with this, relaying information and messages. We know that Professor Barker did have to make calls on his own satellite phone to missionaries initially to pass on demands from the kidnappers. So those sort of lines of communication have been an issue at times because they have been in such a remote area. So there's been a lot of negotiations happening. They came to a peak over the weekend. We saw the police commissioner actually fly up to the centre near this remote area for the finalising of the negotiations. We understand some payments were made to secure the safe release of the hostages.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's been that dispute because initially the Prime Minister said no money was paid, but at the end of the day, to make this a safe outcome, they did pay a ransom, but a very small amount, we understand.
Yeah, so initially the Prime Minister, James Marape, said that the 3.5 million kina, which was originally demanded, which is, almost 1.5 million Australian, he said that amount wasn't paid, but some money was handed over to ensure their safe release. Mr Marape has today said that, they had the option of engaging, that they did have security services personnel on the ground. But this was deemed the safest option to get the people out, and he's been saying that security operation and tracking down these criminals is still ongoing.
Yeah. So they don't have them yet, but do they have a good idea as to who they are?
Yes, even while the hostages were still in captivity, police had identified more than a dozen of the suspected 20 criminals. So they had pictures, they had names, they'd been contacting families. So they clearly have a good idea of who this is. And members of this gang, we've since found out, have been terrorising villagers in this area for quite some time. So they are aware of who they are, and certainly now there is a lot of pressure on to find them and to bring these criminals to justice so that it doesn't set a precedent of kidnappings for ransom, which are relatively rare in PNG.
Are the villagers around this area, though, still concerned that this gang might continue to terrorise them?
They certainly are, Bev. And this area, as we've said, it is incredibly remote. There's no roads in, and that obviously makes it difficult for service delivery and for things like policing. So we've been hearing from people on the ground that, this gang and others coming across from neighbouring Hela province into the Southern Highlands province, have been committing crimes and terrorising villagers in this area for some time. So people there were already concerned, but now, especially since they've all assisted authorities and the victims of this kidnapping, lots of the villagers were helping pass information and doing everything they could to see this safe outcome. So they're now worried maybe there could be retribution or that the criminals could be emboldened. So that's a serious concern from on the ground. I put that to the police commissioner and to the Prime Minister, and they both said they've taken those concerns on board and that there would be an ongoing security presence there to make it safe for people, but the exact time frame around that isn't known.
Yeah, and criminality, as we've talked about before, is a big issue for the PNG government. Do you think there is a will to try and improve some of these situations and to crack down on them?
This is a huge issue, Bev. This has shone a spotlight on what many Papua New Guineans are encountering, on a regular basis, particularly in these remote areas where it is very difficult logistically to get police out there. There's been a lot of people just raising concerns about levels of lawlessness in parts of the country. So certainly this is a huge issue. It is a difficult one to address in some regards because of logistical issues. Mr Marape, this is now becoming political for him as well. He has made the point that the police, he says, are getting the highest amount of an increase in funding in his latest budget. And obviously this has also been a feature of discussions with Australia and the bilateral security treaty. You know, there has been elements of that around policing and internal security for PNG. So look, this is a huge area, and look, there are some things that could be done in the more immediate term to start addressing this. Some of the issues are, you know, going to take longer, but certainly it is something that needs to be focused on here in PNG.
Nat, appreciate the update, and thankfully, of course, we have him home, and this has ended well in the end. Thank you so much.
That's it, Bev. It's wonderful to see both the professor and the 3 women who were working alongside him all safe. We're told they were relatively unharmed. They weren't attacked by their kidnappers, so a good end to things in that regard.
Indeed. Good to talk, Nat. Thanks so much.